Welcome to the Model Rail Replacement Podcast, helping you get to your onward journey. A friendly service that helps you get from A to B, or probably nowhere at all.
It's the Model Rail Replacement Podcast, and I'm your host, James. And with me is co host and producer.
Sam, good morning, everyone.
Hello, Sam. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. I tried to do a different intro like you do. You try and jazz it up a little bit, but I wasn't really sure where to go with mine. So I sort
After,
of
after
I
four
went
seasons, you got to jazz it up, haven't you? Yeah.
I was trying to do late night jazz host as my, as my intro. Whether I pulled it on or off, that's the kind of feedback we need from you listeners. But I am okay. James, how the devil are you?
Well, it's hot,
Mm,
so that, but I'm all right otherwise. Yeah, I'm all good. All good. I've been doing the old Pico Rail 200 board still, neglecting the narrow gauge. The OO gauge is massively neglected, so much so, but worry about that later. I do need to get back on the narrow gauge, but it's trying to balance the two. But I have spent a tremendous amount of time, probably too much time, making working signals for this Rail 200 board. And yeah, I've got uh, GPLs that now work. So it all works with little handles underneath the board, and you just pull the little handle, and the signal will change like you're working the signal box. The points, you can change the points. I've put LEDs on the signal so they'll light up. There's even a limit of shunt signal on there, so it's all. I got there, but it took a long time, a long, long time. And considering that this wouldn't even the working of it is probably not even considered in the diorama competition part. The amount of time I've spent on this board so far that will not be considered for the competition is just ridiculous. But I will have a nice little micro layout at the end of it. So, there is that. And yeah, I think it'd be a little fun one to run as well because, it's got a little run round loop and a siding. And I'm considering buying one more board because you've got until the end of the month to buy one of these Rail 200 boards
mm.
and just get one more so I can build an extension later on.
That's cool. I like that. But I
So,
didn't realize how big the boards actually are and how, considering the cost, they're actually very, very good value for money.
this is why I want to buy another one because I've made the fiddle yard with some wood. But I'm considering buying another. The other board, we either extend it scenically or extend it with the fiddle yard on the other side. Rather than the one I've made. I mean, the one I've made's all right, but yeah, they're not bad. I mean, they're £24 a board. They're roughly what are they about 2 foot by 1 foot, roughly. I
Mm,
haven't got to measure it, but in that ballpark. So
yeah.
yeah, you can get a little bit on there. I mean, if you're doing TT or Engage, you can get something. Even 009, you'd be able to squeeze something on there.
Yeah, I've seen Mark's board, Mark from Idsworth Hall. I've seen his board in person, and that's what made me go, oh, actually, it's quite good value for money for the amount of board you get. And having recently purchased baseboards, they're not cheap, and obviously because they're very good quality. But I was surprised with how good a quality the Pico 200 Challenge ones were for let's say 30 quid.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I think because it's £6 for the postage. So yeah, it's not bad. So I kind of I did I've been considering doing it for a while, but I didn't want to buy one and stop someone else entering the competition just because I decided I want to buy one for later on to add an extension. But I don't know they've got because originally I think they were limited to 200 boards, and I think then they just decided to just make as many boards as they could sell, which is perfectly fine, really, isn't it? So
Yeah. And I bet it would be a really nice photo board for later down the line as well.
yes, well, yeah, I don't think I'm going to put a back scene on this. I think I'm just going to try and do it because I've done it so you can operate it from either side. So. As a micro layout, it can be operated from the front or the back, so to speak. I haven't got intention of putting a back scene on it, but we'll see. We'll see. I've been looking on RM Web because there's a whole forum page on there of everyone's entries, and there's some very very good entries on there. So yeah, a very interesting competition. I think it's good that it's brought you know a lot of people into it, I suppose, and we're all getting together to celebrate 200 years of railways.
Yeah, I think the finished products are going to be beautiful when they all come out, and I think I think it's just nice seeing that people are doing it because I've also seen quite a lot of people who are doing scales and gauges that aren't their traditional one that they necessarily model. I think it's giving people the opportunity to do things that they wouldn't usually do. So, yeah, I think it's a good thing for the hobby for sure.
Hell yeah, 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 yeah. Because I mean, I'm in my making mine an era two one. I've never done era two before, and there's so much difference. It was I had some Pico disc signals that I thought I could just use as the shunt signals, and then when I did a bit of research, I was like, well, no, these disc signals didn't exist at that time. I actually need to get one of the company's shunt signals, and that's why I've ended up scratch building some London Brighton um, shunt signals, which I think the time it took to make these two shunt signals, I could have just gone to work and earned £500 rather than enter a competition to win £500. But it's all in the fun of the modelling, isn't it? So
Yes. Let's go with yes question mark because sometimes modeling is not as fun as you want it to be.
no, these signals caused a lot of swearing because they've got some very tiny little fiddly parts I had to do to make them work. And yeah, I've like used brass rod and the rod from basically the bracket to the little wheel on the bottom makes it turn around. I can't glue in. So every time I was trying to fit it to the board, it would drop out, and then I couldn't test it because I'd have to get some tweezers to gently put it back in. And yeah, it was infuriating to say the least, but it works now.
Good.
I'd, yeah, but yeah, the only thing is I can put lights in them. That was one step too far, and I think I would have lost my mind if I tried to light them up, which is a shame because I say the other signals I've managed to light up, including the shunt signal, and I thought it'd be quite a nice sort of dusk effect to have those glowing lamps on the signals. But there we are. Maybe I'm giving too much away for my own entry. I've got to, telling people what I'm doing. They might up their own game. So I'm going to stop talking about it. How about you?
So my Sunday was filled with frustration. So I had a few hours to myself on Father's Day, as is the one Father's Day present I asked for. Can I just have a few hours to myself, please? Um, and so obviously my Grange and Hodder baseboards turned up last week as we talked about. And so up in the loft, I started building them, built the 2x4. The second that you gave me the hall pass to not have to film it, I was like, brilliant. This is great. I can now just build it and not have to worry about if there's a camera set up. So started building the canopy section, which is going to be the scenic section. It's just there to sort of have a little bit of lighting in it, and to just sort of encompass the board a little bit and try and give it some sort of presence. Anyway, so I got it all built, and then I was like, brilliant. I'm going to take this downstairs now, and then I'm going to start painting it. And then as I took it towards the loft hatch, hold on a second. This board with the canopy on it doesn't fit down my loft hatch. That's going to be a problem for an exhibition layout board, which needs to go out on the road. I then measured up the windows in my loft. Hold on a second. This this board isn't going to go through these windows even if I lower it down to street level. So after carefully assembling the canopy baseboard, I then took canopy baseboard apart and very angrily went downstairs and quickly reassembled it in my back garden with a lot of tutting, sighing, and sending you all a picture as you were all very supportive during my time of need. But
I was very, very upset about the situation because
you
I'd
know,
looked at not recording,
yes,
and I
that's the
felt that
only.
this was a classic Jeremy Clarkson Top Gear style moment that we've all missed out on, and
Yep,
I'm very annoyed about that. So I'm never talking about doing these things again.
there you go, guys. You've all missed out on comedy gold purely because James gave me some really good advice. I laugh. I was laughing about it when I sent the message in our little group chat because I knew that if I didn't laugh about it, I would probably have smashed the board to pieces. I basically took a stop and just basically messaged you all saying, apparently I can't get the layout down the loft hatch now, so that's a bad thing. So not only do I have the board now not in my loft, I now need to figure out where I'm going to store it because it's much bigger in person than I anticipated it to be, and that's simply because it is a 2 foot by 4 foot baseboard, but it is it's got a canopy on it, so like there is already a back scene already on it, and it sort of comes out, so it's almost like a C shape of a baseboard, and it's great because it allows me to add lighting in it to light up the the bit. So if you're new to the show and this is something that you've not heard about before, I wanted to do it where at exhibitions I have a very small layout that shows what you can do with a small space in double O gauge, but also a layout that allows me to show off my weathered stock. So the idea is that I will be weathering right next to the layout, and it means that the stock that I have weathered for myself can just run on the layout and sort of go around, and it's there to just add a little bit of something to show people what you can do with not only weathering but also a small space. Um, so I've sort of spray painted parts of it to try and minimize how much paint I need to use. I have laid the track on the scenic part of the board. I have soldered. There was much swearing when I was doing the soldering. I don't know what it is. I just cannot get soldering right. But it's done. And I installed the lights on the upper section as well. So the lighting's done, the soldering's done on the track. So now I just need to get the other baseboard connected to it and connect those parts of track, and then I can start on the scenics part.
There you go. There we are. That'll be all good. Do you reckon you get it done in time?
I think I will, but only because uh, Mark from Midsworth Holt is going to be building. There's going to be a retaining wall that goes around it, and I ordered parts of the retaining wall in kit form. And basically, I don't get on well with certain kits. I started building it, and Mark said, "Do you want some help?" So he built some for me. So he's
I'm
going to
not,
be.
I'm not, I'm not really sure why you do this hobby. You're not getting on with the soldering. You're not getting on with the kits. You can't get the baseball down. I mean, you can weather, I suppose, but I mean,
Don't
why
say suppose.
why are you here?
I really like it when they go choo choo when it's at a low volume. That's a season tie-in for you. Um, the thing is, it was these particular kits. So I bought a particular brand. I'm not going to slag them off. Um, I bought a particular brand of laser cut kit, and they were so flimsy. And it's not like they were cheaper than some of the other competitors, but the parts are just so flimsy. It was almost like trying to make a paper kit. Um, but because I bought what I thought I needed for it, wasn't enough. So I've had to order some more, and I don't want to build it. So Mark from Idsworth Holt is going to build the scenic parts of this board for me, or at least the kits, and then I'm going to paint it. So I think that's the part that was going to take me the longest time, was having to build these. But the main basics for the board are there. The board will be a running board with track on it. I'm hoping to get all the scenics done ready for Chatham, but it's going to be tight. Luck, Luckily, with this good weather, I shouldn't have any problem with the ballast drying.
No, no. In fact, I had that problem today because was trying to I was scratch building a signal box and was painting the brickwork, and I thought I'd do it outside in the sunshine. I was using watercolors, and you dip the brush and put the paint on the brush, and but by the time I got it to the card, it had just dried. So I was like, I'm going to do this indoors because this is just too hot out here. So
I have not done anything on the TT layout simply because this board now is going to take up all my time until Chatham. I need to make sure that this board is ready to go. So every other project that I have or had is all on hold until this board is done. So that hopefully answers any questions for anyone might have of why hasn't there been any TT videos, or why has this not been done and why has this not been done. It's because now all of my hobby time is going to be going on this board.
well, that sounds dangerous because that sounds like it could be a dopamine drop in that TT, and you come back to it and you'll be like, "Nah, I want something else now."
Let's let's not even joke about that. Main,
Because there's a little tiny bit of truth in that.
oh, absolutely. I do sometimes need that dopamine hit. I think the other problem being that the loft is scorching at the moment. I am very, very busy with work. I've had work has just increased. That's the simplest way I can say it. And so my sort of, I'm getting to the end of my day and I am exhausted. So my ability to then want to do hobby has been definitely smaller. I'm not saying that there's not going to be TT stuff done. There will be times where I can do a 5 minute job here or something like that. But my biggest thing is that I need to get this board done. That is my main thing. But because James has said that and uttered that, maybe I will go and do a few bits and bobs here. I filmed and edited a TT video, but it's not a layout update. But I might put it out in the next couple of weeks. I recorded it whilst I was away a few weeks ago.
Sounds like something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, there isn't to look forward to. News. There's no
I,
news to look forward to, is there?
I'm not even going to play the music because, to be honest, I sometimes forget to put the music in. But you know what? I'm not playing the music today because there's no news for me to put the news music onto.
So shame on all you companies out there. Shame on you all. Nothing for us to talk about. No announcements. We were hungry for announcements. It is summer, I suppose. What they do is they'll do it like they did last year, where we take our 6 week break and then they announce everything over those 6 weeks.
Mm.
Just because they don't like us. But we're here. All right, we're here to stay. We ain't going nowhere. So,
God, we're gonna have egg on our face if we we suddenly don't release an episode next week. Oh God, something's gonna come up now. Something's gonna come up that means we can't record next week. But I tell you what, we do have for us to talk about this week, James. We have a lovely, lovely chat between me, you, and two previous guests, Southwest Max and Danny from various multiple units, where we're going to talk about repaints, some of the challenges you may face, and some of the joys of doing it. And on that note, let's go and talk repaints and what you can do with your paintbrush, airbrush, watercolors, chalk, or even crayons.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah, look at that. That's dirty. That is filthy.
Sir, you can't get that out right now. Not in the middle of a dinner party.
Why not? I want to show it to all of my guests.
I'm afraid it's just not appropriate, sir.
Nonsense, Wilson. Ladies and gentlemen, look at that.
I say, has he whipped out his dirty shunter for us all to see? You can get your models weathered by Emperor's Path using just the airbrush for a light dusting, or alternatively, oil paints and airbrush to add that extra depth. Contact Emperor's Path on Instagram at emperors_path, or alternatively, emperorspathcontact@gmail.com. Emperor's Path Weathering. If it's not dirty, let's fix that.
Only Emperor's Path makes it that dirty.
Right then, we're back after our lovely little ad break. And this week, we thought we'd talk livery repaints because, Sam, I know since you've ventured over to TT120, you've had to repaint a lot of things. But you're not the only person that repaints stuff. And in fact, we know quite a few other people that like to repaint their models. And we've invited two of them onto the show today. It'll be no surprise to anyone who listened last week. We did manage to get them in. Welcome back to the show, Southwest Max and Danny from various multiple units.
Hi guys.
How are we? How are we all?
Very good.
Yeah.
Very busy.
Very busy and very warm. Enjoying this great weather.
It is a very hot day today, isn't it? It's I think Max has his window open, so we can hear the birds chirping in the background. In fact, you probably hear it in mine as well because I've got my door open.
Yeah, I've tried to put them too, just a little bit. I don't want to put the fan on either, otherwise all you're going to hear is the fan in the background, which is not much good.
I just need to reiterate, dogs die in hot cars, all right? Don't shut your window fully.
Well, this is true. Yes, wouldn't want to go and suffocate in this room.
Hot dog.
Mind you, put me out of misery some days. But no, I'm loving this weather. It's awesome.
It is beautiful, beautiful weather at the moment. This is not scripted, and I'm going to make him sort of panic a little bit. But I feel like it would be an absolute crime if we didn't mention right at the beginning of this episode that actually this evening, the auction for Danny's Gordon Pettit locomotives went live on eBay. So I know that it will still be live when this comes out on Monday. If you're listening in the future, sorry, you missed it. Sucks to be you. However, Danny, just off the beginning of this episode, because it's a repaint and it's a very good repaint, can you just sort of talk a little bit about your Gordon Pettit repaint and how?
Oh gosh.
Yeah, sorry, I've stitched you up a little bit, but
Yeah,
I feel like if we left it right to the very end, we'd all forget to do it. So actually, talk about it up front. If you're listening, pause it and go and have a look at this. But yeah, Danny, tell us a little bit about this. What's it all in aid of, and why did you decide to do it?
Oh gosh, so you want the whole synopsis, right? Okay, so
We've got to fill 40 minutes, mate.
um, to cut a very long story short, the guys that are looking after restoring and bringing back to the main line Gordon Pettit 3417, the 4VEP, doing an incredible job. And I wanted to get involved, but the reality is that you can only go and physically work on the unit and so on if you're a railwayman, because of the nature of where it's kept and the third rail and the fact that it's a working depot and so on. So I wanted to do something to get involved and throw my support behind them. And I think we've got a great network of people as well in the community. So Pete from NSE Latchmere has been an absolute legend in his support, and you and various other people from the model railway world. So we all got together and kind of made it happen. So we got the only thing the only way I thought I could do something was to sort of do what I do. So I managed to get hold of some VEPs from Gauge Master, from Kerno, and from the Winchester Model Railways Club. They all donated a unit, so to speak, and I basically got around to repainting them and getting them to look like the real thing. So there were lots of detail bits that were added, cast metal nameplates, etched nameplates, and various changes to the model itself. Had to get the curtains, because it has curtains now. Thank you. So I had to get curtain glazing and stuff like that. So yeah, we managed to get 3 built, and 2 of them went. Well, one of them went for auction on Thursday, and the second one goes for auction on Friday. But by the time you hear this, it will have already been on. Both of them will already be up on auction. So the models were repainted and all sorted out, and then we took them to Strawberry Hill to actually run them on the real thing. So all the guys from the Southern Electric Traction Group came along, and we had a bit of a laugh. Max joined us, and we had a bit of a laugh running the 3 VEPs inside the actual VEP. So that's a bit of a coup for anyone that gets them, to have had one that's been actually run within the unit that it's modelled on. So yeah, it was a great day, and we managed to get some posters made of those as well. So yeah, the auction finishes on Saturday and Sunday, the 28th, 29th. So I'll be at the Bluebell Railway with all 3 for the last time, together for the last time. And then, yeah, the auction finishes at that weekend. So all the money that's raised from the sale will go to restoring the actual real thing. It's been donated to the Southern Electric Traction Group, and the money will be used to help get the unit mainline ready. Mainline certified. So it's fully operational at the moment as it is. It's in great shape. The guys are working on it and doing a fantastic job. And the money that we raise will help to go towards getting it mainline certified. So they've got quite a bit to do in terms of getting that done. They've got to reupholster a lot of the seating. There's some work they've got to do in terms of cleaning it and getting it ready. But the actual unit has to, in order for it to be mainline certified, has to have certain changes made to it, like locking the doors need to be able to be locked and so on. So they've got some work to do in terms of getting that done, and it all costs. And they do it free. They do it out their own sort of blood, sweat, and tears. So it's nice to be able to contribute, and the money that's raised from the sale of these units will go towards that. So it's a great result from everybody getting together and making it happen.
That's amazing. It's they look great. Having seen them in person, they look fantastic. So once again, if you want to be part of this like historic thing and help bring Gordon Pettit back onto the main line, then you can go and check out on eBay Danny's auctions for these units. And even if you're not a third railway modeler, you'll be able to go and have a look at these. So that's that's done, and by no means is it something that I wanted to just sort of rush out the way. But let's have a conversation about repaints, because all three of us, and I know James as well, we've all done some sort of repaint when it comes to model railways, and I think it's such a daunting process for people. What would be, between the four of us, what would be your best bit of advice that you could give people for how to get started or what to start on? Max, I'm going to throw the conversation towards you first. So, what would be your thing that you'd say to anybody who's new and looking into doing a repaint for the first time? What would be something that you'd suggest to work on?
Don't do it unless you want grey hairs.
What a
They're a pain in
start.
the neck. No,
Or
in all
shave your head.
seriousness, it
Thanks
is
for coming on, Max.
fantastic. It is fantastic, and I think it's really useful because a lot of the time, even if there's something out there, say you want a specific unit, you might be able to buy it, but you might not be able to buy it in the livery you want it in. So if you are able to repaint it, it's a fantastic way to be able to get exactly what you want. Without having to pay a huge premium for it, because you can buy one that's a bit cheaper, maybe with some cosmetic damage. By the time you take it apart, strip it down, completely, because it is important. You strip the old, existing paint off of it before you start over again. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about that more later on. You won't have any of that cosmetic damage, so it's you affect a lot of the 450s that I've got. I'm quite lucky. I've got currently 7 in SWR, which all started life as 350s. So for me, it's been great. So I've been able to build up that fleet for probably less than half the price, buying up 350s with a bit of cosmetic damage, and the 350s are cheaper than the 450s on eBay anyhow. So I've been able to buy them, take them apart, dip them in the isopropyl alcohol, to strip the old paint off, then slowly repaint. And now it takes me about 4 to 5 weeks to repaint a full coach unit. Obviously subject to work and everything, because you're doing it out of your spare time, but certainly it's a great way to be able to have exactly what you want and go into a bit more detail as well. I mean, I've said it before, Backman's new 450 in SWR is not quite right. They've also modelled 036, 450 036. That was the first one that got repainted in the real world, and the blue band along the bottom sits slightly lower than the rest. So Backman have modelled that correctly, but it does mean if you renumber it, it's going to be wrong for the rest of them. And granted, I'm sort of at risk of being called a rivet counter or whatever, but in my opinion, a difference like that is substantial enough. Because if you put it against a sort of normal unit, so to speak, then it is quite a profound change. You're going to notice it. But being able to repaint, again, you can do stuff exactly how you want it. Because no unit's quite the same. Each one's got a story. Each one's maybe had a repair on it, this and that, in different areas, or been painted slightly differently. I know I've done the post previously. One of the ones I did, 450059, the yellow on one side under the number 1 seat, it sits closer to the tail light than it does with the yellow paint than it does before you hit the blue on the rest of the units. And that's something I was able to model when I did the repaint of it. So it does give you this ability to have some completely unique stuff in your fleet, stuff that you can't get out of a factory. And granted, there are limitations. You're repainting using transfers, so you're not going to get the lettering or anything quite as sharp as you are when it's sort of printed from a factory. But you're still able to get it exactly how you want it. There's this, as I say, there's so many different quirks if you really look into specific locomotives or units, and you're really able to sort of bring it out. And everyone has got their own different level of how much they want to sort of go to town with it. But I find having the ability to repaint just allows you to put your own sort of personal twist on it. You can go as far into detail as you want. You don't have to go that far. So yeah, being able to do a repaint, I think is a great skill to have. You'll never be out of work, even if you don't need anything yourself. I always have other people asking me, "Oh, are you able to repaint this or kit build this?" for example. It's a skill that not many people have when you compare to the whole hobby. So it's if you are able to do it, then it's something that's definitely worth giving a go, and it's fun as well. Yeah, I said, "Oh, don't do it," but no, I wouldn't do it if I didn't enjoy it. It's fun, and everybody loves peeling off the masking tape after each color, especially when you get to the last couple of colors of a livery and you peel back the masking tape, and it just reveals this beautiful paint job you've done, and you can look at it and think, "Yeah, I painted that, and it looks great." Yeah, you just have to keep doing it. It's repetition. It's all practice. The first thing I repainted was 2 444s that I did a couple of years ago. First thing I repainted, the paint job itself and the application of the livery was great, but I made a bit of a mistake with the varnishing. I ended up having to put an extra layer of varnish on it, which then yellowed sort of the grey of the livery quite badly. And on the SWR livery, for those who are not familiar, there's a yellow stripe or a yellow band right across the bottom of the coaches. And I painted that on directly on top of the dark blue. So again, it's not quite as bright as when I've done it this time round. Painted the yellow one, then used a thin bit of masking tape to cover over, painted the blue on top, peel off the masking tape, and now you get this yellow really popping. So there's little things like that you pick up over time, and you've got to accept that if you're going into it, it's not going to be absolutely spot on first time round. If you look at the first 450 I repainted versus the latest one, it's they're both quite good, but you can certainly tell my skills have refined quite a bit since then. But you're always able to dunk it back, strip it back again, and give it another go. There's no limit to the amount of times you can do it. You just have to make sure the glue you use to assemble it, you're able to then sort of pry it back apart again. I use the Dulux Materials Rocket Card glue when I put the windows back in, so I am able to pry stuff back open if I did want to repaint it again in future. But yeah, you give it a go. By all means, give it a go. Find some old body shells. You can pick up some old coaches at shows or on eBay for whatever, spares, repairs, and you're able to give it a go. I know Danny uses a brush, so you're able to hand paint it. Personally, I like to go down the airbrush route, and that's another can of worms, but I'm at risk of already going on for too long. But there's such a big world to explore.
But I like what you're saying, because you're also being very honest about, obviously, it can be stressful at times, and you do sometimes look back on the work that you've done and have a very different thought process to how you feel about it now to how you feel about it then. And I've seen those 444s, and I think they look great. And you're your own worst critic anyway. I know you're incredibly hard on yourself. So
they're okay. How did I put it? They look good from afar, but far from good, in my opinion. Certainly compared to the latest stuff I'm doing.
I think the part that you're also not mentioning is the fact that they are 3D printed kits as well, which are even harder to do than doing sort of ready to run coaching stock, stripping it in isopropyl alcohol. They're a whole different kettle of fish, and I think those 444s you've done look great. So, Danny, same question to you. If you were going to get someone to get into repainting, what would be something that you would recommend as your first thing?
Well, it's funny because I've always got the same three kind of things that are always, for me, have been probably the biggest catalyst. One, research. Just it's so easy now to be able to research, because with the internet and online and with Flickr and with YouTube and Facebook and Instagram, there's so many, and Google, there's so many ways you can do your research. You can find loads of photographs. You can watch videos. You can, if you could, whatever it is you want to do, just do the research. And for me, actually, sometimes the research is the best bit, because you just literally go and find out all the information about it. So, and it makes me realize I wish I'd taken more pictures when I was a bit younger and I was a bit back in the day. And then the stuff that I model now is obviously from the 90s predominantly. And so I wish I'd taken more photographs of things like, not necessarily taking pictures of cab fronts, because whenever we take a picture of a loco or a unit, we always take a picture of the front of the cab, and it's all the little bits about like around the side and underneath on the chassis and stuff like that. It's all boring if you're not into it, but it's the stuff that you always struggle to model. So yeah, do the research every time. Just get on. Flickr's probably my biggest resource in that respect. I always do sort of try and pull off like 20-30 pictures from Flickr and just sort of try and get as many pictures as I can, just so that you've got that visual. Secondly, patience. You just have to take your time. and these things aren't fast, and the various processes that go into putting a model together take time. And if you think that you can I always remember being sort of like in my 20s and think, well, it was actually my teens actually, because I was doing other things in my 20s. But you kind of needed to take your time, because I was always rushing. I was like, I want to get this done. I want to get it on the rails. I want to run it. And it's big mistake. If it takes 3 months, which is the average, I would say for a unit, it takes about 3 months from start to finish, or at least start to running. So I have got some that I haven't finished, but yeah, 3 months I would say is probably the average for a 4-car unit. So you just have to take your time and don't rush it. And if you have to wait a week, just to get the painting process done, or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, as is often the case in units for me, it takes 3 weeks. It takes 3 weeks. And if you have to wait for the paint to dry before you go on to the next stage, or you have to wait for the varnish to dry before you could start detailing, then 24 hours, 48 hours, then that's the best thing I can do is be patient. And then finally, and the third one is just preparation is everything. Preparation really is key. So if it takes a long time to, like Max was saying, to strip the model and to get it down to the bare plastic, and get it down to the base, then take the time, but get it right. So just getting that sort of preparation done is really important. And if it's a long time before you get to put the paint on, if you're stripping it down, if you're sanding things down, if you're filing, I always remember when I worked on a particular model and I had to fill in some windows, and it took a while to get I used this, I can't remember what it was called. It was like a putty. You had to mix the two things together to make this kind of clay. And then you put the clay, milliput, that's the one. And I put it in, and I left it to dry overnight, and then I sanded it down. But because I didn't, I should have, it was a Mark III window, and I should have put in some plastic card to block it, and then just put the milliput around the gaps. But I didn't. I put the milliput in the whole window, and filled it, and then sanded it and filled it and sanded it. And the problem was I was in such a rush to get the primer on, that it actually over a week it sank. So you had this kind of like duct where the milliput had contracted slightly, and so basically I had to do it again. So you're better off taking your time and getting the preparation right, so that you only have to do it once, but then rushing it, and not doing the preparation, and then having to look at a model that you could see the flaws in it. And if you have flaws in it, then you have flaws in it. Don't beat yourself up over it. But yeah, I was kind of gutted that I rushed it, and so yeah, do the research, be patient, and preparation is key. Those are the things I would say with any model that you're going to approach.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Danny, there. I think if you were thinking about going into repainting for the first time, for me, the two key things would be absolutely, and I can't stress this enough, take your time with it. Do not rush. Like Danny says, you want to get it back together. You want to see the completed paintwork and livery, and you want to run it around your circuit. But absolutely take your time to do it properly, at least when it comes to airbrushing. And I'd have thought to an extent with hand painting as well. The longer you spend doing the masking tape, because that ultimately dictates where the colour is going to go, the longer you take to do the masking tape, to do it right, the better it is going to come out, regardless of how you put the paint on. So absolutely take the time to do the masking tape, then take the time to leave it 24, 48 hours, as Danny says, before you do the next bit. Because the worst thing you do is rush it and end up peeling some of it off, or you don't get the colour quite the right shape or whatever. And this is exactly what I'm sort of about to go through with my Southwestern trains or stagecoach livery 444s. So yeah, absolutely take your time. The main barrier for me when I first started doing it, so this is for anyone who wants to go and do it but a bit hesitated, was taking it apart. Because you think, look at all these little pieces, especially on the 450s, you got all the little headlight pieces, and it's like, oh my goodness, how am I going to get this back together? The two simple rules. First rule, take a photo. Take a photo of the inside every step of the way. Take a photo of what it looks like. Make sure you get in the photo the shapes of each piece and where they sit. And the second thing is, as you take it apart, do it on a clean surface where you're not going to lose things in here, and make sure you have those little plastic bags, only small, 4 centimeters by 5 centimeters will do, that you can sort of pinch them back together. So you can put all the little bits in there, because if you drop a windscreen wiper or a headlight or whatever it is, the chances of you finding it, if you're in a messy workspace, is not fantastic. So absolutely take your time when you take it apart. Careful not to break stuff. Don't be scared to use a certain amount of force to get the glazing out. Also, you don't want to try and break it. I've broken a couple of bits, and I've had to buy a couple of spare body shells to replace things. But yeah, don't panic about taking it apart and losing the things, because ultimately you're going to have to put it back together one way or another, and just cross the bridge when you get there. Organize the bits, put them in a bag, and you'll be fine. Then when you do put it back together the first time, you can refer back to your photos that you've taken, and you'll be able to do it. So yeah, don't panic when you go to work halfway through the process and you think, oh God, it's not quite right, but it often looks wrong before it looks right. Just trust the process. And we've said it before. Danny and I have said it before. Trust the process. It is a process. It takes time, but you'll get there.
I think that's a good shout. In fact, the one with the window, the photos, that's just for generally anything in life, like DIY or fixing your car. The amount of time that has saved me because I've taken a photo, but I can't remember. I went, oh yeah, that goes there. It's one of the best ever. But yeah, no, I think it's made some really valid points there. And I know we're sort of, the three of you are very much third rail modelers, and you've sort of got that shared interest. But it's the same for any models. Obviously I do the narrow gauge, and most narrow gauge modelers are all the same. I think we're pretty much all the same, unless you want to model like the Festini Og, in which you're spoilt for choice by the delights of the ready to run range out there. You have to repaint your locos because it's usually going to be a freelance line, and I've done the same with mine, and I think all your tips are absolutely so true. Is take your time, don't rush these things, because it's. I don't want to sound mean, but I find that those that model Island of Sodor based engines, when they like to repaint them into the more accurate liveries, and you can see them on YouTube and that, they are some of the most hideous repaints I think I've ever seen, because they just get a paintbrush. I know you like using the paintbrush, Danny, and you have a technique which is just amazing. But they'll slap it on with paint. You can see the brush marks in the paintwork. It's on really thick. And the lining is they've tried to do it by hand. And no one can line by hand. You either need a lining pen or transfers, don't you? I don't think anyone has that steady a hand. But yeah, I think you've both raised some really valid points there.
I think you're absolutely right, James, because when it comes to things like painting lining and stuff like that, it has to be done you have to mask it. And I know we'll come on to that subject in a bit, but I think the one thing that I found really helps, because like Network Southeast, for instance, is it has its challenges, particularly with the swoosh bit. And I know you're going through it right now, Max, with your Southwest Trains swoosh on your 444. But I do find that if you're patient and you do it as best you can, you'll still get bleed. You'll still get parts where the paint comes through the masking tape and so on. But there are tricks that you can learn to sort of clean that up as you go. And I'm sure we'll come on to it later on, but I think you kind of have to be really patient, and you can't even and I hand paint most of what I do. You can't rush it. You just can't. So if it's coming out it looks like someone's just taken a paintbrush and gone whoosh and slapped the paint on, then fair play to you. That's not going to achieve the desired look, but if it works for you, then fair play.
I I hark on about this because it's where I started, but there's a phrase that gets thrown around, and all the people who used to do Warhammer or still do Warhammer will know this phrase is three thin coats or two thin coats on your models. And it is better to, if you've got a palette, whether you're using a wet palette, a normal palette, an artist palette, or anything like that, if you thin your paints down, whether that's with water or with an acrylic thinner or enamel thinner, if you're an enamel person, if you thin it down, that first coat you put on is going to look rubbish, but you trust the process. It is better to put on multiple thinned coats of a paint than to put one really thick coat of a paint. Not just for the fact that you don't want to get those brush marks on there, but I can guarantee you the paint that will come off easier will be one thick coat of paint versus multiple thin layers. And that applies to airbrushing, doing it with a paintbrush. You just have to take your time and understand that it's not something that just happens overnight.
And that's absolutely bang on, mate, because it's ironic actually, because I always forget that there's a 3-coat rule. And you, because as we say, you trust in the process, you just do it. And I forget that that's actually quite an important statement to make, is that you do have to put on 3 coats. And I, you know, if you're putting on Network Southeast, for instance, and you're putting the red over the white, it might be quite strong the first coat because red is a very dominant color and white isn't. But at the same time, you'll still have marks in it where it's thinner than if you've hand painted it. And if you sprayed it on, it will still not be a true strong reflection of that until you put the second coat on. So I forget, you've absolutely nailed that one, Sam. I forget that there's a 3-coat rule. And that those of us that do it just do it anyway. You don't think to tell anyone that that's what you do.
Absolutely. And I think this is probably a good point to say now. If you are going to get into repainting, you have to accept before you start that it takes time to build up the coats slowly. It takes time, and it's never, like Danny said, it can take months to complete a repaint, you know, especially if you're doing units when there's multiple vehicles involved. It does just take time. You do 3 coats, it takes 3 times as long. So what, it's, you know, this is not something that can be rushed in a lot of cases if you want it done properly, but it is part of the fun of doing it. It's, you know, ultimately it is still a hobby. It's important to remember that. So you have to accept that it's going to take time. It's not meant to be done quickly. And once you've accepted that, it's like, okay, well, let's just trust the process, go along with it. Start with your first coat, let it dry properly, let it dry, then do the next coat.
I'm going to say something very outlandish, and I hope that this doesn't come across as me just trying to wind people up, but it's something that I usually get asked, especially when it comes to weathering, what's the best thing to practice your weathering, or what's the first thing you should weather? And I think the same sort of thing applies from a repaint point of view. I think that the best thing that you could repaint is something completely fictional, whether the livery itself is a real life livery, such as Network Southeast, Intercity, BR Blue, Great Western Green. I'm trying to remember Steam things, LNER Blue, or anything like that. Is putting it on something that it never existed on, because, and this isn't leading, Danny, don't worry, because I think I can hear you giggling away in the background.
I've already got thoughts.
But I think it's because if you work on something that it never existed on, you can't mess it up. And that is, I think that's one of the biggest worries to anybody when they start repainting. And so my first repaint in model railways was Hornby TTA tanker wagons. And Danny has sat next to me so much at shows and heard me talk about how important these are to model railways, whether it's for repainting, weathering, or just general modeling skills. The ability to change over so many parts of a TTA tanker to increase the model's realism is so good. But they are such an interesting thing. And my TTA tanker wagons are a completely false livery that has an homage to Warhammer, but it's the idea that you can pull the actual tanker body parts off, you can clean them up, you can then spray them separately, you can put them on the body shell, you can do all of these wonderful things with them. But if you do something that is fictional, whilst you will ruffle a lot of feathers with what you're doing, I think it is better for you, your peace of mind, your psyche, your mental health, to know that no matter what you do on it, technically you can't mess it up because you are not going to clash with something because it didn't exist. And I think that's really good to encourage you to learn to paint, because another thing I feel like we sort of brushed on it. This doesn't none of this happens overnight. None of us just suddenly picked up a loco and went, yeah, I'm good. This is years of, I mean, for me, it's 20 years of painting Warhammer and then suddenly deciding suddenly wanted to paint trains. And then like all of us have had a project that we first started. We didn't just suddenly come from nowhere.
I think, well, I always say this when anyone says to me like, "Oh my God, how do you get into that? How do you do that?" Because it is so difficult. I couldn't do it, and I always laugh because for every great model that I supposedly have, there are 2 or 3 Frankenstein monsters hidden in the box under the bed, and
get them out on Halloween. Jesus, what's that? Don't go around that freaky house.
And I always think like, there might be, it's like Toy Story, isn't it? There's those toys from the neighbor, the kids, the neighbor across the road that has the toys that are like the doll's head on a tank or something. But like, no, there are models that I've worked on that I've in the earliest stages that are probably not that great. But the thing with those is that you do need to practice, and you do need to learn your skill set and learn how to do things. And I mean, for me, it was always Lima Mark ones are great because they're like £5 at shows. You can pick them up for next to nothing. They're Hornby Mark 2As as well. Were always quite cheap, and pretty much now any Lima locomotive is pretty cheap. So you can get this stuff to practice on, and you can, and you're right, doing things that are slightly experimental. I remember I painted a Hornby Class 25 into red stripe rail freight, and I thought it was the dogs. I absolutely loved it, and I remember showing it to Pete NSC Latchmere, and he was like, "Yeah, but they were never in that livery." And I'm like, "Yeah, but doesn't it look great?" And he was like, "But they were never in that livery." And I'm like, "Yeah, but wouldn't it be good if they were?" And he was like, "Yeah, but they weren't in that livery." And so you kind of, he never grasped it from me. He was always like, "No, but that's wrong." But for me, it was like, I just loved it. And I loved that 25, and I kept it for years and years, and then ended up painting it blue. I succumbed to the realism and so on. But the point I'm trying to make is it's that running away with a bit of practice and trying something out on and using something that you can afford for it to not necessarily be right, that allows you to practice some skills and to try things out. And in doing that, you get the opportunity to see, okay, so that was really difficult, or that didn't quite work, or I should have done that first. I should have painted the cab first before I painted the body, or whatever. And it's that practice that will lead you into some of the harder things that you have to do, like painting an NSE or Southwest Trains or something like that. So yeah, I 100% agree with you, Sam, completely.
I think that's a good shout actually, because I picked up a Daypole Class 56 from a model shop in Swindon. I think it's long gone now, but someone already had a go at painting it, and it was a monstrosity. And I was exactly the same. I stripped it back down, and I was like, I'm just going to paint this in mainline aircraft blue. They never wore aircraft blue. It was only because there was an incorrect bit of information on Wikipedia that said that the 56s had been under mainline ownership, and I was like, I don't think they have, but I think that would look really cool to do that. But you're right, it was a cheap model, and it was something to start off with, and I picked up more confidence and a bit of skill by doing that, and then I remember later on moving on from that model, and I dived in and actually had a go at repainting a full HST Engaged Daypole HST in the Merlin Great Western livery, and I would probably never had that confidence had I not started with that more basic and quite poorly treated model that I had repainted.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, and I might go as far as saying, well, if you paint something that was never in that livery, I mean, ignore what other people think anyway. This is relevant, frankly, unless somebody else, you could have somebody saying, oh, well, it wasn't, it just didn't wear that. It's like, well, do you repaint? It's like 9 times out of 10, probably more. No, they don't. So shut up, and you just have to give it a go. But fine, you've got to motivate yourself to do it. And I think, if you repainted something that didn't wear it, you'd probably get less stick for it than if you did something that did wear something, but then you did it wrong. And that upset the rivet counters even more. So just go for it. Whatever people think doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. Just carry on. People can go.
It's a different age, isn't it, though, Max? Now, because like everything's on social media, so you put something on social media and you kind of almost bait them. You're kind of almost baiting them.
Well, yeah.
And it's. I mean, I think when I painted that 25 into Red Stripe Ralph, I mean, I loved it, and I remember showing it to Pete and him not liking it, but it was just him. We didn't have social media back then, but I suppose what the one locomotive that's been repainted that we should really be talking about here is probably Sam's Network Southeast Class 87, because that really was clickbait, wasn't it?
Engineered.
I mean, I've been a wind-up merchant for quite some time now. I think my membership card is wearing a bit thin in my wallet. The thing is, and this sort of goes back to my previous point, right? Is what's a loco that you love, but you couldn't necessarily pick what livery it runs in because it isn't in your favorite. And for me, Network Southeast has always been my favorite livery, but the 37, I think it's a crying shame that they never ran in Network Southeast. And it was by pure, I just one day picked up a 37. I think it was a Bachmann 37 for probably £35 in my local model shop, and I went,
wow.
And it was in the blue mainline livery. No, was it Regional Railways? Might have been Regional Railways livery. And I'd already done some repaints, and I was like, do you know what? I'm going to go for something where I have no palette to go on. I have a color palette, and I know that lines run in a particular way. Let's give it a go. And I just sort of went with it. And whilst yes, it does really wind some people up, which
I think it actually looks quite good.
Thanks.
Was it the first thing you ever painted in Network Southeast, Sam?
No, I'd love to say that it was. I had, once again, Lima, when I got back into the hobby, was this perfect cost. I got into the hobby after the COVID boom, shall we say, where model railways really started to take off again. And the biggest thing that was putting me off originally was just the sheer cost of everything, especially if you were looking for something that was DCC ready or above. And because of that, it meant that the stuff that wasn't DCC ready, such as the old Lima stuff, you could pick up. And I had picked up a 33, which I actually, if I'm being really honest, I kind of did. The 33 was my big annoying people thing. So Crompton's only came in the Network Southeast livery that was the revised livery, so the later livery. But I did actually paint a 33 years ago in the early Network Southeast livery, but because it was
sweeps.
Yeah, but because it was in an era where I was just doing Lima stuff, I did post pictures of it, but it was never popular. So it sort of got overshadowed. And the short answer is no, it wasn't my first Network Southeast, but it was my first, I guess it was my first genuine livery, but on a fictitious, it never ran in that livery kind of thing. So I had something to go off. I had a line that I could work on. And then I look at, and I do the same thing, Max, with your 444s. I look at that and I go, the red's too dark. I can see where the red, and it's mainly the red stripe on it, and I can see where it goes big and then it goes small again and stuff. And I can see that my masking wasn't as good as it could be. And it's just one of those things that I accept it, because I don't think I'd like to repaint it now. Like, I don't think I'd undo my job just to redo it, just to fix the red line. I'm kind of happy with its little quirks.
But I mean, the thing is, what I like about that livery is that, yeah, it's one that, okay, maybe 37's never worn that livery, but there's a 37 running around now in a ScotRail livery that was never prototypically correct for the time, and it looks fantastic. So you never know. Someone who owns a 37 may decide that, yeah, Network Southeast actually will look pretty good on it, and then you could probably just argue that you were the inspiration for it. You never know.
If they could get the matching Emperor's Path nameplates for it, I'd be over the moon.
That would be pretty cool.
Rail services, if you're listening,
just make a little Southern boy feel really happy. Actually, there's 3 little Southern boys on here tonight, so actually everyone's outnumbered. So we've talked a lot about the stuff that we model, which is predominantly rolling stock that was very southern region based. So, James, you have the experience of doing sort of steam era stuff with your narrow gauge. Um, I guess I don't want it to feel like we're trying to just sort of make everything about the stuff that we do, because repaints really, really matter to everyone who are involved. Now, in my head, I'd say the actual painting part of a steam loco is the easiest part of it. And I'd say it's easier than uh, repainting some of the stuff that we do. However, I think and this is because this is how I would do it. I think the transfers part, or the decals part of doing a steam loco, is far, far worse or harder to do because of the lining. And that's something that's always put me off doing any repaints on a steam loco. It might be because you just don't necessarily model steam, but do you think that is something that would put you off doing any repaints on any steam locos?
I agree there, because I haven't done any lining on any of my narrow gauge locos just because I didn't want to do the transfers. So they're all just plain blue. And I've done it before. I've my dad's bought like locos off eBay that have been poorly treated, and then he's given to me to paint. And I've done a couple of Great Western locos for him. And yeah, like you say, repainting it is easy in the sense that, well, especially BR stuff, it was either black or green, but obviously later on some got painted red, etc. But otherwise, yeah, it's just a plain coat of the base coat of Brunswick green, and then the black for the all the parts that get hot or dirty, like the roof and the smoke box, etc. But yeah, the more tricky part was then putting on the lining, which it could be a bit of a challenge, especially when it's I mean, the more complex ones. Can you imagine trying to do a South Eastern Chatham Railway loco? I can see why Bachmann charged so much for them and why they fetched so much on the second hand market, because I mean this must be so complex. And it's the same like those new LNWR coaches. I was reading the review by Tony Wright on them, and there was a chap. He spoke to a chap who said, if I was painting these, I would charge £200 a coach for them to be painted like that. And that's probably where the complexities of it come in, isn't it? But yeah, I think it's easy to repaint the steam loco. It's more the lining part. But the advantage is, if you screw it up, you just take the lining off and start again. It's not like you have to repaint the whole model. You just sort of just give it another go and just have another practice. And usually, like, depending where you get transfers from, there's usually spares in there. So if you do screw it up, you can have another go. And even if you make a really appalling job of it, it has only cost you what, £8 in transfers. Just buy another pack and have another go at it, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I think the thing that puts off a lot of people from lining, and probably myself included, is it's just it takes a long time. So even though you have to be patient, it still strains you, and it's just tedious, isn't it? It's tedious, and then you need 3 mirrors because you can't turn your head for 3 days afterwards.
I'm gonna put a question out here to give you guys some time to think about this, and it's we're gonna ask it right at the end of this, but it's more because this is an unscripted episode and we are sort of going off. I want you to think about now. All 4 of us have done the traditional interview episode that we do on this podcast. We have all answered the question of what is a hobby item you think people should buy. Now, I'm going to say, as a repainter, what is an item that you would tell people that they should buy that isn't the item you mentioned on the podcast originally? So sit and have a think about that. We'll come back round to it, but it's just something that's what's coming for the listeners, but it's also so that I can give you guys some time to think about what you would bring. Because obviously, Danny, you mentioned Scotch tape. Max, for the life of me, I've drawn a blank. I was sat here trying to remember what it was that you said.
It was tiny paintbrushes, because they're very useful. But to be honest, I sat after we recorded that episode and I thought a long time. I thought, oh, there's so many other things that actually would have been a far better response than that. I just sort of fudged it on the day, but yeah.
Well, now you've got a chance to redeem yourself. I personally, at the time, thought it was a good choice. But you've got time to redeem yourself now. I would prefer it as well if Danny, if you don't say tiny paintbrushes, and Max, you don't say Scotch tape. That will make this a much more interesting podcast.
Yeah, that would be a great
Okay.
wind up, wouldn't it?
They're my answers anyway. So.
Okay, so we've talked a little bit about Steam. So is there a particular repaint that you haven't done? Now, Danny, I speak for you and I especially. We tend to really err on the side of the Network Southeast, and we've done other liveries on top of that. But I hope I don't offend you by saying our bread and butter is Network Southeast, and Max, yours is very much you are the Southwestern Railways man. You are someone who, and I've said this to you in person. I think that your painting talent on those locos, and Danny and I have sat. We've had this conversation as well. The talent that you have when you do those liveries is so, and it is I wouldn't want to attempt to do the Southwestern Railway livery. So go on then. Tell me if you were to paint something you haven't painted yet, what would it be? And Max, I'm gonna come around to you first again. What is a livery that you haven't painted yet, but it's hopefully next on your list?
Well, first off, thank you very much for your lovely feedback over the SWR repaints. That's really kind of you. I suppose I should have had enough practice now. I think I've done 12, 13, 450s, plus a number of 444s. But to answer your question, what haven't I painted yet, which I want to? Up until this point, it was Stagecoach Southwest trains, specifically the Express White on 444s. I always wanted to do 444s in this livery because it was my favourite livery, and still is to date my favourite livery of the privatisation era. Obviously now I've just started it the last couple of days doing it. I love it. I think it looks fantastic. Those swooshes were so nostalgic to me. I just became old enough to sort of remember trains sort of as the last slam doors were disappearing off and the Desiros were coming in, and seeing the swooshes even on the 442s as well, and racing through Brockenhurst, and then later on the 444s. And those yellow, red and orange swooshes across, that's just really stuck out to me, even on the 450s. So that was a livery I always wanted to do, and obviously now I've just started doing it. I've got the first of 6 colours on them. So over the next, this is coming out on the Monday, so hopefully by then I'd have got maybe at least another colour on. But over the next couple of weeks, I'm sort of hoping to bring this to life on the latest 444s. Everything I've learned, I've already tested or practiced a little bit getting the curvature right on those swooshes at the front end. I think I put a post out on the day of recording this, which is the 19th, I believe. So yeah, that's certainly something that's be quite a challenge to me to get it absolutely right. The shape of the curves, crossing over the right part of the doors, the windows, and symmetrical on both sides. So it's going to be quite interesting to do that. So yeah, that was one. That's the obvious answer. I suppose I'm using it now because I've not technically painted it yet. I've just started. So yeah, that's one for me. Stagecoach, SWT, the Express White.
Nice.
That's my answer for there.
Oh, cool. No, you see, this is where we become we all morph into that same one person that ends up always liking the southern region, always liking the same kind of things.
It's all too southern.
Because I have to be honest, I pretty much have covered most of the liveries that I cover in my era, so to speak. So like British Rail Blue Grey, which was the really hard. I actually think British Rail Blue Grey is harder than NSE, but that's quite a tough one for me. NSE I've done obviously several hundred times, and Jaffa livery was the other one that I've really enjoyed doing. That's actually quite easy. I think the next one that I have, I've done Southwestern Railway because I did that class 458 that went to Gordon's Lane in it. And the next livery that I haven't done that I probably will do, it won't be this year, unfortunately now, but next year I am going to attempt to do another 458, but this time the original one, stroke 0. And that is going to be in Southwest Trains livery. So same as you, Max, in that respect. So yeah, this is where we all morph into that one that one person. But yeah, that's probably the next one. So I'm looking forward to doing that, because I think it's quite an interesting livery. And on those particular units, they are quite sort of funny looking. I think it will be quite fun to do.
Was it Darth Vader trains they were called, or was that the 460s? I'm thinking
That's the 460s. I forgot X.
Yeah, because the 458-0, they were very, very different. But that was the Express White as well, wasn't it? They wore in their initial.
It wasn't. It shouldn't have been, because they weren't used on Express services. But anyway, that's geek talking. Sam, how about you?
There's an honourable mention, and it's A, to placate anybody who is north of the Thames. But it is also one that I really want to do. But obviously, I don't know if anyone's aware, I've changed gauges. So my painting side of what I'm painting is very much what I've painted for years already. So it's kind of cheating. And I agree with Danny, BR blue and grey is actually far more difficult to paint than Network Southeast. And it is because of that little white line that goes around the window frames.
That is a challenge. Easiest way to do it, I find now, is to paint the white on first underneath, then use 0.4, at least. Granted, in TT this is going to be slightly trickier, but in AA, what I did on Freshwater, the blue and grey 3 sig, was paint the white on, then use 0.4mm micron masking tape to do it, and then that's the last bit that comes off after you've done the grey and then the blue.
That's the same method that Shane uses for Southgate Park, and it's a really good method. I've seen it done, and it looks fantastic. How do you do the corners, though? How do you get those curves?
I used a blunt blade on the craft knife to sort of hold the masking tape, and then just gradually worked it round. And what I did about 45 degrees of the curve on the horizontal line, and then the other 45 degrees on the vertical line at the end of the coaches, and just got them to meet in the middle. You have to overlap them slightly, and you still, again, have to just touch up at the end when you put the blue on, just to get the curves proper, and ultimately you'll get a little bit bleed through. But it's it does work. Just takes time.
No,
yeah, I completely interrupted you. That's my fault.
No, trust me. The good thing is having you guys talk about different techniques and stuff. Because actually, one thing that BR Blue and Grey does, it unites everyone. Everyone has BR Blue and Grey. So actually, you're solving a problem for me there. My honourable mention is actually the Caledonian 73s. I think they're a gorgeous looking loco. I've said it before. Yeah. I'm just repeating myself. And I've had them for months. I've got a set of the Caledonian transfers from Railtech that eventually I was going to paint a 73 into, but I just couldn't pay for the upgrade kit that you need to convert them into 73/9s. So that's my honourable mention. However, I am going with Southwestern Railways. But it is the red Class 455s. I think they are. I always remember as I hit my teens and I started going to London by myself and things like that. And I always remember sometimes you would drive up to Guildford or Kingston and all these like various places, and you jump on to Wimbledon, and you jump on trains or tube, whichever one was quickest. And I always remember, as soon as you get inside the M25, the gorgeousness of, you had all our sort of trains from down in Pompey, but you also had the red 455s, and they are such a striking livery.
Yeah, I do admit I want to do that as well.
I don't know if you've seen them. I know that Greg at Ebsworth Street / Gordon's Lane has a few of them in that livery, and it was actually seeing them run on Gordon's Lane.
He has one at the moment. However, I am in talks with him about building up to 3 more at some point.
Amazing.
It's such a great livery. I think, if I'm really honest, Southwest Trains, all of their liveries, the White Express, the blue outer suburban, and the red inner suburban,
the best impressions.
Really smashed it. I remember when Stagecoach first took over, I hated it because I was like, no, it means goodbye Network Southeast. And we got this kind of what I can only describe as a makeshift Network Southeast livery with the old blue and the orange stripe that they shoved on. And I hated it. I absolutely hated it. So when they revised all their liveries and we got the blue, the red and the white, I just thought they smashed it. And it was a crime when they lost the franchise, but I just thought they smashed it. It was really good. So it was great when Southwestern Railway didn't change the liveries for so long, and we
The
kept
irony
them.
is, there's a handful of sprinters. I think all the 159/1s are still in Stagecoach colours.
It was, yeah, and when they took over the East Midlands franchise, I thought it was great because we then got the same replication up north, and seeing the, well, it wasn't up north, it's the Midlands, but when you see like the blue on those 153s, the Stagecoach blue on the 153, I thought it looked absolutely killer, and the 156s. So yeah, definitely, so much colour on the railways.
I love the fact that how you described the transition into the Stagecoach era as like it. I always describe it as the Timu Network Southeast.
Exactly. Timo, you couldn't have put it better.
But ironically, I really like that livery. However, I'd argue that that is more difficult to paint than Network Southeast, and it's
Yes.
because of how the white lines affect
But the
it.
white
Whereas,
lines are even smaller, aren't they?
yeah,
Yes.
so you have to go back and do extra layers on it, which is why I've never redone that livery again.
And I tell you what, Sam, it's a bugger to remove when I did the VEPs. I had one, the third one, which the Winchester MRC donated, was in Stagecoach livery, and it was the blue came off easy, the orange came off, the beige came off, and the red came off. But that white stripe that runs between the red and the orange was a bugger. And it was a real challenge because because of the way that it had been put on. It was kind of the defining line for the rest of the set. So it was a real challenge to get off.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's not a favourite livery of mine, I'm afraid.
And just to remind anyone listening, we are talking about repainting, not necessarily all of these liveries. So please be aware that what we're saying has value to it, because as Danny said, and Max said about how important it is to strip all of the parts and stuff. And we're going to come on to this because we're about to talk about our absolutely worst or our favorite muck-ups that we have ever done when it comes to a repaint. I'm going to mix it up, and I'm actually going to ask Danny to tell us his one first. So Danny, just to reiterate, tell us what your favorite or your worst absolute muck-up is, because as a repainter, you've done X amount of layers, or you're just starting it, and there is something, and I don't know if anyone's sat at home and done it, and just to let you know that all three of us have done this. So it's to make you aware that this happens, and we do it, the three of us, on a professional level. What is the muck up?
There was a reason I talked in the first question. There was a reason I talked about patience, and there was a reason I talked about research and patience, and it's one of those things where you do a lot of what you do based on what you've done wrong, or where you've made a mistake or an F up in the past. And that's how we learn things. You know not to stick your hand in the fire because it hurts. So I think we've all been there. And for me, the problem was I primed. I was doing a 4-step in Network Southeast, and I primed it, and it, bearing in mind it wasn't even for me. It was one that I'd offered to build for someone else. It's now running on Folly Lane, but that's another story. So I'd taken this 4-step, and I'd gone to paint the NSE, and I put the blue down, I put the white down, I put the grey down, and I went to put the red stripe down. And it's my favourite bit when you put the red stripe down, because it suddenly goes from being a very dull coloured unit to suddenly having this bright red stripe in it. And there's something about that red stripe. I know we've talked about this before, Sam. It brings the whole livery together. And I put the red stripe down, and I pulled the tape up, and the whole thing came off. The whole straight down to the metal.
Heartbreaking.
And the worst thing is when you look at that tape, and because I use Scotch Invisi tape, you're looking at the tape, and the whole livery's there on the tape. It's there on the sellotape, and I'm like, oh my God! I actually remember feeling sick, because I was devastated. And the reason it happened was because I didn't do the preparation. I didn't. When you paint, when you prime, I should say, an etched kit, the etched metal, you really do need to clean that metal down. It's not you when you handle it, and if you're handling it with fingers and not gloves, you get grease on there, and you there's a layer of what I'm not very good with science, but I think there's a layer of oxide on the top, on the surface, and you need to get that off. And so what I normally do when I do an etch kit is I run a bit of wire wool, very fine wire wool, over the surface of the etch, which just takes off the oxide layer, and then you just wipe with a clean cloth, you just wipe it down, and then you just prep the surface with a bit of white spirit just to make sure that there's no grease or dust or anything like that. Really, really clean that, and as soon as the white spirit has evaporated and gone, you prime it, so that there's nothing on that surface. And the prime I use now is Halford's primer, and it's a grey primer, and it literally sticks like crap to a blanket, and there's no getting that off, and it's great. And I hadn't done that preparation, and I'd learned that retrospectively. So the long and short of it was, I ended up having to start again on that particular coach, and it was heartbreaking. I literally seeing all that paint come off in one go. But the end result was that it was salvageable. I literally had to go along and clean it off again, rewire wool it, or wire wool it, I should say, this time. And in doing so, put the primer back down, and it was fine in the end. It just took a bit longer because it meant I had to do another week's worth of painting and priming. But there you go. So yeah, that was my F up.
It's one that we've all, and in fact, when I did my first kit with using brass etch size, that I can't remember if it was you or Pete. In fact, I think both of you might have said the same to me. Was the wire wool was the first thing, and I was very grateful for that, because it's when you first attempt not even only repainting, but you then attempt to work on a kit, you've got even more invested in it than you do if you were just sort of repainting a loco. You've not only that, but you've also got the time in having to rebuild the thing as well.
Yeah.
I
think
so. Yeah.
I mean, I this is where my imposter syndrome kicks in. I'm not particularly. None of us have had, professional training or anything like that, so I never know if what I'm doing is the right thing. I learned it myself from talking to other people, and I think I was talking to Greg at DEMU Showcase the other week, and what we were saying was that if you really sort of are going to start doing stuff that is probably out your comfort zone, then there's nothing better than getting some really sound advice from people that have been there and had that experience. And being part of an MRC is somewhere where you can learn those skills. And there's courses. I say courses. There's literature and stuff that they can share with you that would really help. And I think when I started doing all of this kind of stuff, I did it in my bedroom on my own, and I kind of just learned it as I went. But there are people out there that have done that and had that experience and can really help. So being part of an MRC or part of a community like DEMU, or being online and talking to people on social media can really, really help. So I would say, like, if you're going to do something you've never done before and you're a bit nervous and you don't want to have a situation like me where you pull it all up with the tape, then just have those conversations with people that do know, and there's plenty of them out there that everyone's got some advice to give. So yeah, reach out.
Thank you. Max, the same question to yourself.
It was the 3.6, because I started the project last year, so spring 2024. Again, first time I've built an etched brass sides kit, and I got loads and loads of advice off of yourself, Danny, and Peter at Latchmere as well. And the advice you gave me was absolutely invaluable. But I still fell down the classic hole of rushing it, because I ended up with 6 body shells for the 6 coaches, 2 units, 2 3-coach units, which I was not happy with. I rushed the building, I rushed the filling, I then rushed the priming and the paint job. And I was just constantly pulling bits off and then having to repaint. So there was different layers. I wasn't happy with the join in the top of the body shells and the bottom of the roof. There was no guttering rail where I hadn't filled it properly. And as such, when I tried to paint the orange cantrail line along there, it didn't sit. It didn't sit straight. It just wasn't good because there was a gap. And if you go back on Instagram, and to be honest, I should do a post at some point and compare it, and you can see it was just not good. And I put the yellow paint on too thick on the fronts as well, because as Danny says, it's a grey primer. I use the same stuff. Although this time around I used a slightly more expensive one. I still bought it in Halfords. U-Pole, I think it was, acid etch primer. But it's like Danny said, it's grey, and I didn't reprime white, so I just went straight on with the yellow paint on the grey. And as such, the yellow was too dark, but it wasn't like a deep dark. It was just a grey dark. It was just wrong, frankly. And I got them painted, put them together, and it's like, no, it's just not good enough. And I ended up rebuilding the body shells completely from scratch a year later. So this year I've done it again, and I had to take the body shells apart. So the things I'd spent hours on the previous year, and I've still got the body sides and the front ends from my last attempt in a box somewhere. I've not thrown them away. And I had to completely start over from scratch. And obviously, in many respects, it's good because I learned so much doing it first time round. And from all the advice I've got off Danny and Pete and other people who have done the same thing, that this time round, second time round, I've been able to do it a lot better. And again, it's one of those things that it comes with the territory. You're going to do it, but at some point you're going to screw it up royally, and you just have to accept that that's how it goes. It's you got to take the rough with the smooth, like anything in life. And now I've got the 2 units, and they're lovely. I'm really happy with them. They've come out an awful lot better than it did first time round. But yeah, I mean that was quite a harsh lesson, and it's my own fault. Anyway, I rushed it. I broke the number 1 golden rule I made for myself, which was don't rush it. And I rushed it, and then I paid the price. I had to buy 2 new sets of etches and all the paints and that, and time. But I mean, time I wouldn't say was wasted because I learned so much. But and it's I shouldn't really talk about I had to buy all this extra stuff, because that's I accept that's part of it. But still, it comes back to don't rush it. And I still had fun doing it. I learned a lot, so it wasn't all lost. But yeah, I think that was my most royal accident. How else do I put it? No, like I say,
we all heard what you wanted to say.
Yeah, I mean, there's other stuff which I've not got 100% right. Like again, but coming back to my first 2 444s, I didn't do the varnish right, so I ended up with sort of the 3 coats of varnish, and it yellowed it quite badly. But again, you live and learn. You do it and you learn. It's a journey. Life is for living. It's not a race to get it done. It's about having fun and learning along the way. So yeah, absolutely take advice of other people.
We're all our own harshest critic, though, aren't we, Max? Because I think I know you've mentioned your 444s, your first ones, a couple of times, but I think they're incredible. I remember seeing them and thinking that they looked standout. And I think I'm having a bit of imposter syndrome myself with the 4 Veps, and I think it's one of those things, isn't it? You kind of like, when you look at it, you're immediately drawn to the flaws because you know that they're there, and you're not quite necessarily happy with them. Whereas for most people, they just look at it and see the wonderment of the phenomenal creation that you've made, and won't focus on those flaws. So yeah, I hear what you're saying.
This is true. I look at them and then I compare them to the 2 new SWR 444s that I'm currently doing, and they're just worlds apart. But it's just a reminder of you learn. You do it and you learn. There's so much you learn just from practicing it. And that's the best thing. You can talk to people, read stuff, but ultimately the only way you're ever going to get really good is just to keep practicing. It's like playing a musical instrument.
But that's the thing, and I think this is the harshest critic thing. isn't it fantastic that you have two units that you're able to look at and compare and see how far you've come in such a I feel like we're on like a this has suddenly become a very motivational. But the idea is you've done those units apart, and yes, you can see such an incredible sort of step up in the quality of it. I can't deny that. But for me as an onlooker, seeing the original ones, I think they're great, but seeing how much better the secondary ones that you've done are must be such a good feeling to you, especially in such a short space of time that you've learned so much in such a short space of time. And I think one of the biggest things is you don't learn by not doing.
No.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
You have to do these things to learn. And whether it's a case of that you are learning, you might be someone who learns very quickly. You might be someone who learns through coming up against obstacles. You might be someone who learns by coming up against these like incredible mess ups. But it is the fact of what a great thing that you've got. I don't have something where I can look at two units that I've done that are exactly the same, but they're done apart. You've got this wonderful thing where you can now look at those things and see how far you've come in such a short period of time and how much better those units are. Whilst the first ones are still good, and yes, you're being your harsh critic, and I always say this to you, but it's the fact that you can look at those two and just see such a difference because of what you've been doing in between those two. All of the little steps that you've taken in between have led you to have the 444s that were at this level, and now you've got these newer ones which are at a much more incredible level.
It's funny actually. It's like the old Star Wars trilogy, isn't it? The original Star Wars trilogy, when it first came out, it was great, but George Lucas went back and redid them, and came out with something much stronger. And funny enough, I was watching a documentary on it the other night, and I don't mean to sort of divert from trains to Star Wars, but it's just one of those things that really sort of resonated. It resonated because
James.
You've summoned him. You mentioned Star Wars and summoned him.
No, but it resonated because George Lucas said, I do not like the original ones because they didn't really show what I wanted them to show. And so when he went back and redid them and brought them out, the special editions with all the extra footage, put it back in, and the Jabba in the way he wanted him to look and so on, it was like he was happy with it, and he won't recognize the originals anymore. And I feel the same way, and I'm sure Sam probably Max does with regards to the 3 SIGs, in that the first version was great, but look, the revised version is so much better, and what you've done with it, and how you've taken the skills that you've learned from the first version to the second one, it really makes a difference. So there's a lot to be said.
I just need it to be clarified that Danny wasn't saying that episode 1, 2, and 3 were better than the original Star Wars. He was saying the revamped versions before we get all of the hate mail from people. Because I think
I'm not talking about I actually love the prequels. No, I'm talking about the first version of Star Wars, when he did it in 1977 and then went back and redid as A New Hope.
The remastered ones.
The remastered, that's the word I'm looking for. Sorry. No, I love the prequels. I love the prequels.
They're good. They're not as good as the original.
In being friends with James, I have discovered that Star Wars people are a very different kind of people, and I just needed, before we get
they are like rivet counters, but they all have an idea of how Star Wars should be, and that's why they all fight with each other, because they all love it. But they all have a different idea. It's a very, very harsh community to be a fan. It's usually best to just stand on the edge and just watch them fight in the middle and just go, I like Star Wars. You do, obviously, there's bits I don't like, the bits you do like. We're each to their own,
True with anything.
Some people like third round multiple units, other people don't. I mean, the people that don't obviously have switched out of this episode, but
there's nothing wrong with it. We tried
so hard to talk about North of the Thames, and every time it just goes back to third rail stuff.
Can we start comparing overhead electrics to Jar Jar Binks? Is that something that we can start doing?
Tell you what, to try and bring it back up, one thing I have wanted to do, coming back to the livery you want to do, I did spend a little bit of time in my childhood on the 319s, back in the First Capital Connect days, with the pink doors and what was it called? Delivery.
First Capital Connect.
First Capital Connect. They're the name for the livery. Either way, the blue and purple and pink livery on the 319s. That's something I've always wanted to do. And because you can get the pre-decorated Brackwell one, but it's not that crisp. I feel like I could do a better job painting it by doing
really
the artwork for those transfers. It's going to
Really
be
tough.
tricky. Although, having said that, I thought the NHS 450 was impossible until Greg Marshall over at Gordon's Lane, Ebsworth Street, sort of gave me the kick I needed to do it. And huge thanks to Rainbow Railways as well for transforming the artwork I did for the additional decals into actual transfer score on the unit. And at the end of it, it came out really well. And I was very proud of it. So yeah, definitely a 319.
But if you do 319002 in that livery, I'm certain that's the one my brother first drove. So he'd have to come off you in an instant.
Wow.
Yes. Well, if I can get the artwork to do it first time round, then I should be able to do it second time.
So yeah, that'd be cool. That's a cool shout. That's a cool livery.
On that note, I think it's a really good point to end it, but I'm just going to come back to that final question to you all. What's one hobby item that you haven't already said that you think people should get? And this is a quick fire one. So Max, what's yours?
Oh God.
If you've not got an answer, I can quickly move to Danny.
I'm actually going to say something a bit different.
Go on then.
And this is not a physical item, unless you really want it to be. Then I can choose something else. But I think the one and the biggest, most fantastic thing I have in this hobby is friendships. And if it wasn't for being friends with yourself, Danny, Peter, and even the other people online who I've not met in person, my skills would be nowhere near where they are today. Everybody learns from bouncing off each other and motivating each other. So I think that the one hobby item that I would be nowhere without is my friendships with fellow hobbyists. I think that's absolutely invaluable and a huge part of my success.
That's really nice.
Oh, great. So now we're all stitched up. We're all going to sound like...
I didn't think that one through.
Well,
Apologies.
I want to talk about...
Danny, what hobby item that you can give us that makes you sound cold-hearted are you going to pick?
Well, apart from having really good friends and having a great support network, it's a tough one because obviously I can't talk about Scotch tape and I can't talk about... I think transfers... is a really good shout, and I have a really great relationship with Railtech transfers.
Yes,
because they've just been incredible. Steve, who does Railtech transfers, it's a one-man show pretty much, and he does a grand job. But he's always really, really busy, and if you email him, sometimes you don't get a reply. But the one thing that I would say that he's really good at is just whenever I ask for custom transfers, I always send him some photographs of what it is that I want the transfers to look like and stuff. And I would say that every single time I've got transfers back from him, they've come out exactly what I wanted. He does custom numbering, custom logo, custom nameplates, and all that kind of stuff. And I've ordered stuff and they've come literally within 48 hours. So it all depends on how busy he is, bless him. But Railtech Transfers is my huge shout out. And there's no brand endorsement there. I don't get any money for it. But he's absolutely superb. And
yeah, I'll echo that. Steve is a fantastic guy. Yeah, Steve is awesome. He's a genuine guy. He does want to help and I have a lot of time for him. And his product is spot on. Yeah. Send him a photo of what you want. And as Danny says, he will get it right.
He actually he's cool because he does come back to you as well if he says that he's if he says that the numbering looks slightly smaller on that or this doesn't look quite right, can you measure it? And he will come back to you. So he is really good. Sorry, James.
Camera phone, obviously. So take your photos when you could go through to make sure you put it back right.
Yes,
that's a good shout actually.
That's very good.
That is a good one.
That.
I like that. Brilliant. Okay. Mine is going to be an IKEA spaghetti jar because they are just the right size for Mark 1 and Mark 2 coaches, which doesn't matter where in the world you model. They can fit in that jar when you fill it up with isopropyl alcohol. So an IKEA spaghetti jar is top of my list of things that I think if you are looking at repainting, and like Max and Danny both said, it's very important that you strip the model, not necessarily because you need to get the paint off, but you don't know what's been on top of that paint, whether it's grease or anything like that, and that can massively, massively mess with your attempt at repainting something. So IKEA spaghetti
shout.
jar.
Just remember to remove the chassis if you're doing
Oh,
the
yeah.
loco.
And the glazing.
All those things.
Isopropyl will cloud the glazing. So yeah, take the glazing out.
There you go. Cool. Well, I think that's been a very successful discussion. Thank you both for coming on, and very admittedly at very short notice. But thank you so much for having a chat. Very, very quickly, Max, if people want to find you and they haven't already listened to your wonderful episode, where can they find you?
So you can find me on the Instagram at southwestmax, all one word, _railway. Instagram only for the moment. I've toyed with YouTube. I've not found the time, but I'll maybe in one day. But yes, if you do want to find me, I'm happy to give out my advice free of charge for the moment. southwestmax _railway on Instagram.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And Danny, if we want to find you, where can we find you?
I am on Blue Sky, X, Facebook, and Instagram, and hashtag various multiple units, all one word, or various multiple units. On any of those should pull me up. So
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Now, you're going to be at shows together this year, and I believe you're going to be at Chatham as your next show, in which we will all be together. Now, I believe, James, I'm going to steal it from you. I think it's time that we went for a little ad break.
You there? Oh, me? Do you like model railways? Yes, that's why I'm listening to the Model Rail Replacement podcast. Do you like comedy? No, that's why I'm listening to the Model Rail Replacement podcast. If you like model railways and comedy, head over to BugglesKellyStation.com. From Dad's Army to Will Hay, Laurel and Hardy to the island of Sodor. Add a comedy cameo to your model railway today. All right, thanks. Buggles Kelly Station. You won't be wasting your time.
Wow, that was a lovely long chat, wasn't it? And a very interesting one too. They were great to come on as guests, and I think it's been great to have them on talking tips about model railways. And I suppose if people like that kind of thing, they need to let us know so we can plan these things a little bit better than a week in advance just by dropping it in the last podcast that we want to come on the next podcast. But it worked out this time. So there we are. Right then, Sam. Shall we have a look at the exhibition diary?
Yes, let's have a look. I'm pretty sure there's some nice things coming up.
Indeed. Right then, for the coming weekend of Saturday the 28th and Sunday the 29th, we'll start with the Frizzing Hall Models and Railways Open Day 2025 75 years anniversary celebration. This is at Unit 8A at Sapper Jordan Rossi Park in Basildon, West Yorkshire. The 28th also has the Thunderbolt Models Limited Covrail 25 at the Meredith Road Baptist Church in Meredith Road, Coventry, Warwickshire. The Kerry Baptist Church is having the Small and Friendly Show at Kerry Baptist Church, Marlowe's, Hemel Hempstead in Hertfordshire. East Kent Model Railway Society and Whitstable pop-up show of model trains at the Seaside Museum, 12 William Street in Herne Bay, Kent. Ryle and District Model Railway Club 2025 one-day model railway exhibition at the Parish Church Community Hall, High Street, Prestran in Clwyd. Apologies for those who live in Wales. You know what I'm talking about. I really need to learn these place names. Saturday the 28th also has the 85E Tewkesbury Model Railway Exhibition 2025 exhibition at Tewkesbury Baptist Church, Station Street, Tewkesbury, Gloucestershire. All weekend is the Carnforth Heritage 1940s weekend at Carnforth Station Heritage Centre, Wharton Road in Carnforth, Lancashire. All weekend, Holly Coombs Steam in the County, Mega Model Weekend at the Holly Coombs Steam in the County, Iron Mill, Midhurst Road, Liphook, Hampshire. Bluebell Railway is having a model railway weekend, and that is at the Bluebell Railway, Sheffield Park Station, near Uckfield in East Sussex. Also, the Ellesmere Model Railway Club Rail and Vintage Tractor Show is at the Bryn Hall Farm in Knowlton Bryn, Overton-on-Dee, the Borders. There's the Perth Model Railway Group, Perth Model Railway Exhibition 2025 at Dewars Centre, Glover Street, Perth, Perth and Kinross. Locomotion is having a model railway show at the Locomotion Dale Road, Shildon, Durham. Sunday the 29th, Stowe Market Model Railway Club at the Model Rail Exhibition in Blackburn Community Centre, Blackburn Road, Elmsmith, Suffolk. And we have the Astolt Model Railway Club Guildford Model Railway Exhibition at the Guildford Spectrum Leisure Complex Parkway, Guildford, Surrey. Aren't you at an exhibition this weekend?
I am, and it just so happens that it's the Guildford show. So if you are in the area, I will be weathering whilst you wait, and also I'll be there if you fancy a little chat. And I'll have my little helper Geggs with me. And Geggs is really socially awkward, so if you tell him that you heard about him, that'll make him really, really worried.
Yeah, that's it. Right, shall we go to Call Attention Corner?
Yes, let's go to Call Attention Corner.
So, firstly, Danny, who's just been on, who called attention at the beginning, wanted us to call attention about what he called attention to. His eBay auction for those units, which is very exciting. I'm trying to cover the fact that I can't find his email because I'm putting someone else.
Danny's 4 VEPs of Gordon Pettit.
That's it. If you want more details, go back to about the 20-minute mark.
But they are on eBay right now if you do want to. And remember that all of the proceeds are going towards the restoration of the Gordon Pettit 4 VEP unit.
There we are. There we go. See, I knew someone had some details. Right then, we have Anthony Kill, and he has written in to tell us about his own TT120 project. Let's have a look here. I believe he's got a YouTube channel. So he says, please, can you give my YouTube channel, Anthill, that's Anthknill. So if you're looking for it, spell it that way. A shout out on the podcast. His surname's Neil's, pronounced Neil, like the football school. He started his journey properly into YouTube last year, just putting a few videos of trips to heritage railways, such as the North Yorkshire Moors and Tanfield. His journey into model railways started when watching Hornby, A Model World, with Simon Kohler talking about TT120, and he became hooked. He said he bought the Easter set on the first batch, but only recently started videoing or vlogging what he was doing and putting on YouTube. His basic set track packs from Hornby, but now has 10 logos in TT120 with various rolling stock. He has lots of plans going forward, which you can see and hear from his videos about what he plans to do. And he's hopefully going to be converting Falcon into Sir Nigel Gresley as a modern day locomotive. So that'll be something to look forward to. He's also been taking various videos at shows to show on his channel too. So there we are. That's a little shout out for Anthony Neal and his YouTube channel, Anthill. There we go. So go have a look at that one, especially if you like TT120. Well then, Sam, that's it for this week. I think next week we're going to talk about model railway magazines and whether they're still relevant to the hobby. So a little discussion there. Hopefully we won't be upsetting anyone, particularly the publishers. But until then, we're untouchable, suable wise. I think maybe, I don't know, slanderer, maybe, I don't know. How can people find you?
That was crazy. You can get hold of me on Instagram at emperors_path. You can find me on YouTube at Emperors Path. And you can also message me with hopes that I do eventually reply on Facebook at Emperors Path. James, how can we get hold of you?
Well, find me, it's Western Sigmund. Best place, come find me on YouTube. I tend to not look on Instagram these days, but I am there. I don't post much. In fact, all I post now is just the joint videos with Model Rail Replacement Podcast, which also has its own Instagram account, Facebook account, YouTube account. I don't think we've gone to Twitter yet, have we?
No.
TikTok, we haven't done that one yet either. Maybe if the kids want us to be down with it, we'll do TikTok. I don't know. But we've the flat share videos seem to have stopped, haven't they? Maybe we should bring them back.
Yes.
Yeah. Let us know. Let us know in the comments. Do you want the flat share back on Instagram? And also, you can email us if you want to do a call attention corner. If you want to be on the podcast, then just drop us a little video and we'll add that. Or if you just want me to read out your email, we can do that too. It's modelrailrp@outlook.com. Well, that's all for this week. So all I can say is that hopefully we've been entertaining, informative, and replaced your model railway, if only just for a little bit. I've been James, and with me has been Sam. Thanks for listening.
This service terminates here. please ensure you take all of your personal belongings with you.
Hello, listeners. We've got some very exciting news. Do you want to be part of the podcast? Do you want to join the team? Well, an exciting opportunity has come up to allow you to be part of the Model Rail Replacement podcast. And here's Sam with the details.
This episode is brought to you by Patreon. A huge thank you to our Patreons for their support. If you'd like to help support the show, you can head over to Patreon and search Model Rail Replacement Podcast, where you can show your support and be part of the team.
Hurry, there's unlimited places.